I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I'm really excited about my next guest. This is actually his second time chatting with me. We are back together again. He is really passionate about helping people overcome some of their limiting beliefs, things that are getting them stuck. And I'm just going to let him tell you all about it. But before
Cool.
we get into that, I want to introduce to you Steve Taubman. And we're going to let him tell us a little bit about himself and how we can kind of get unstuck. Right now, this is a very appropriate topic with a lot of people dealing with this pandemic. So take it away, Steve.
Yeah, you know what I'm realizing now is I've started to look at all the different things that I've done over the course of my life that have had to do with helping people get unstuck. And for a lot of my career, early, of course, in my career, it was about getting them unstuck from their physical problems because I was a chiropractor.
Mhm.
So I was literally getting them unstuck,
Right.
getting the spine unstuck and creating channels of energy through the body to heal more effectively. So that was my first foray into the world of unsticking.
Mhm.
And then as years went on and I became an entertainer and I was doing hypnosis and magic, then I was starting to notice that there was another kind of getting unstuck that had to do with getting our brains unstuck. What happens when we entertain and delight people and cause astonishment and humor, that causes another level of getting unstuck. And then I became, I wrote books and I started speaking about the power of focus and the power of belief and how we can be more successful. And again, I realized, well, this is also about getting unstuck. So there are layers of stickiness throughout our lives, and at the very maybe I've been toying with how I'm going to ask you this: which is a better metaphor? So picture a ball like layers, layer upon
Okay.
layer. Okay.
Mhm.
So either the innermost layer is the things that you're stuck with that are very close to you, they're claustrophobic, like your physical health. And once you solve that, then the next layer out is your emotional health. Now you get rid of anxiety. And then when you get rid of that, then at the next level is how do I get rid of the habits that are keeping me from getting where I want to go? And eventually you're working from the inside out. That's one metaphor. The other metaphor is like an onion, and you start on the outside and you work your way in. So on the outside, the very first layer we need to peel away is, are you healthy? Right? Are you physically healthy? Are you walking around in pain? And if you are, well, we need to peel that layer away in order to get to the next layer in. So I don't know if I should start from the inside and go out or from the outside and go in. So I'm open to suggestion.
You know what? Being in that field, it's just a matter of the person
I
being the
guess.
leader for that. Because if they're more outward driven,
Ah,
then I would say start with peeling the layers of the onion. But if they are really kind of trying to deal with these internal demons, so to speak, then we
start
go
bringing it
from
up.
the inside out. So it's just wherever somebody's at, which, as it comes with
Oh yeah.
our profession, there's no cookie cutter way to do it. Okay.
That's for sure. Yeah, I'm just playing with which one I like using better. Lately, I've been gravitating towards starting in the middle
I like
because
that.
I feel like when you're in pain, for example, and I've been doing a lot of work lately. We'll talk about that in the area of pain control.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fascinating field, and it has to do with the mind and how our minds influence our perception of pain. But if you're in pain and your perception is such that that's as big as your life gets, that's a very small life.
Right.
All I do is I sit around, I complain. My friends don't want to talk to me anymore. My kids are tired of me. I'm bored because I'm sitting home all day. I wish I had a bigger life, but I don't. That's one level. Right now, if you can get past that, very likely the next level is going to be realizing those emotional blockages, the anxiety, because a lot of people are walking around anxious. There's a lot of anxiety now.
Yeah.
And there's always been a lot of anxiety, but now it's being revealed to a greater extent. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what is that anxiety, and what are the mental blocks that create the experience of anxiety? And what do we need to do to peel that one away or to push through that one?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start living your life in a somewhat what we like to call the normal way. At least, you go getting up in the morning, you go to work, you're sort of functional.
Right.
But you're not extraordinary. You're not living an extraordinary life yet. You're not, breaking through all your limitations. You're not necessarily doing all the wonderful things you could do. You're not making as big an impact as you could be.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who have reached that wall and they want to break through that wall to get to the next level. Now there's a whole new set of barriers that need to be torn down to go further and further. But it's all the same, right? It's all moving around inside of whatever bubble you're in, finding the walls of that bubble, bursting that bubble, and then finding the next bigger bubble until you find your way to a place of complete freedom where you're soaring like an eagle, doing remarkable things in the world, helping others, living joyfully, because when you're not in that stuff, you're not so self-centered. You're much more magnanimous. You care more about others because you don't have to be identified with your own ego. You don't have to be identified with your
Right.
own need.
So
So,
true. Yeah.
yeah.
Now, so, for somebody who's listening, because, during this time with this pandemic, a lot of people are reinventing themselves. Their industries have changed. They have to really kind of hone in on who they are, what their skills are. But there's this element where we admit the things that are kind of politically correct, so it's like, oh, yeah, everybody has a coach, but it's so guarded. You come to the coach, but there's still like a level that you say the things that you hear everybody else saying. But, for somebody who is wanting to go a little deeper, what do you recommend them doing, or, going about to make a transformation?
Well, it starts with monitoring yourself, knowing yourself, being present to yourself so you know how honest and vulnerable you're really being. Because you're right, we could all get away with it. And everyone I know who's ever gone to therapy puts on their brave face in therapy. Like they when they get to therapy, they don't look like somebody who needs therapy because they don't want to look like they've got problems. And it's true
Exactly.
when you come to
Like the
coach.
person who cleans up before the housekeeper comes over, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we don't want to air our dirty laundry right in public. So I think we need to start getting more self-aware so that we can be more honest about that process and realize, okay, why is it that I feel like I need to hold my cards close to the vest? And that in itself is the very experience of wanting to keep that stuff to yourself is one of the things you need to let go of, right? Not just the stuff you have to let go of, but the stuff that has to do with why you think you have to hide the stuff.
Right,
It's a
right.
deeper level, right? So
Yeah.
there are nuances to this. I'll give you an analogy. I was working with some focus kinds of exercises where I was purposely allowing myself to feel an unpleasant feeling. In the case that I'm thinking of right now, it was an itch. I did that this morning. In fact, I was walking and I got an itch on my foot. And I've been teaching this technique to help people to level out pain. Like if they're in pain, there are ways you can use your mind to basically evaporate the experience of pain, regardless of what's causing the pain. It's not about like treating the problem. It's basically about changing how your brain is processing the experience,
Mhm.
right? So I was doing that and successfully, and then I got an itch in my foot.
Mhm.
It's like, well, if I can make like a pain in my hip go away, I should be able to make an itch in my foot go away. So I'm not going to scratch it, right? So I'm just going to go through the mind process, through the layers of the technique that I teach.
Mhm.
And what was fascinating is that when you really look at your experience of an itch, it's very much like when you really look at your experience of hiding your reality from your coach. It's like not only are you reacting to the thing you're hiding, but you're also reacting to your reaction. You're also like, I don't want to tell anybody. So with the itch, it was like this. It was like first I noticed the itch and I noticed I really want to scratch the itch, but I'm not. And so my focus, my consciousness is about the itch. I'm noticing the itch. But then I also notice that there's tension in my body associated with wanting to scratch this itch, right? So that's another whole layer. It's another thing to be aware of. I'm aware of the itch, but I'm also aware of the feeling inside of me that's evoked by the itch and the feeling of entitlement. It's like, I've got to do something about this. So there's an analogy here. It really works the same way with everything in our lives. Not only are we dealing with the thing that we're uncomfortable with, but we're also dealing with the feeling we have about the fact that we're dealing with the thing we're uncomfortable about. And
Mhm.
maybe that might be a little complicated, but the idea
Right, I feel
is,
what you're saying. Yeah.
okay, good.
I mean,
So we have to
it
just
just
keep on
goes to
going
show you
deeper.
how things are connected. I mean, that's just like this domino effect. We think
Total
things are
domino effect.
isolated incidences, but it's all connected. So yeah. But go ahead
One of
with
the
your.
things, John Sarno is a guy who is famous for, he's a doctor who is very famous for teaching. He has a book, I've got the book here somewhere, called Healing Back Pain. And he talks about how virtually all pain starts as emotional pain. That what we do is we create physical pain as a distraction from our emotional pain, which is kind of fascinating. It's like we
That
don't
is
like
fascinating.
the emotional pain, so we visceralize it. We create physical problems for ourselves. And then we, because it's a lot easier, it's more socially acceptable to complain about a pain in your back than the fact that you're anxious or depressed or don't like yourself or something. So you create this experience. And like what Louise Hay used to talk about, every physical ailment has a concomitant in our emotional body. So like, if you have lower back pain, she says it means you don't feel supported. Right? So your body experiences the physical experience of not feeling supported. Your back isn't supporting you. So, I mean, I don't know how much all of those things can be, tied together in reality, but it's a really interesting theory to play with
Well,
that
you know,
in
it
many, many
seems
cases.
it
Yeah,
seems pretty fascinating because we self-sabotage. So
all
to
the
me, I
time.
would think that would be the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's just a more subtle and more refined and maybe more um, creative way to do it, right? I'm just going to I'm angry at the world and I don't want to say I'm angry at the world. So instead I'll just, get sick and stay home. And
Mhm.
so we're constantly bargaining with ourselves at a subconscious level and creating symptoms out of it.
Mhm.
And the only reason I'm honing in on that aspect of our conversation is because now much more of my work has been in the area of physical pain and anxiety versus what I was doing before the pandemic, which was helping people to make more money in business and help them envision what they want their lives to look like. How does my life look when it is exactly the way I want it to be?
Mhm.
Because it's the same dynamic. That's what I'm saying, is the dynamic is exactly the same. It's just in a smaller bubble.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So, for right now, for people who are dealing with anxiety and, how do people become aware? Because the thing about it is,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, we admit things to a point because
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. Everybody can talk about getting a coach or having therapy. We even joke about it. But
Mm-hmm.
for somebody really to just put the line in the sand and become aware, and maybe from a male's perspective too, because women, we do talk about these things more than men. But somebody who's listening, what is something that they can do to kind of just face the music and get started with that journey to moving in a different direction?
Well, the simplest and most direct path to this, although not the easiest, simple but not easy, is meditation. And why is that so important? Because when you quiet your mind, when you discipline yourself to be quiet, even if you don't like it, especially if you don't like it, most people don't like it. It's not a pleasant experience. I think people try to meditate and then they say, that didn't work for me. That was really unpleasant. Well, that meant it was working because you were discovering how unpleasant it is for you to be quiet. Now, if you sit quietly and you suddenly discover that you're a ball of anxiety whenever you try to get quiet, that should tell you something. That should tell you that there's work to be done. That should tell you that you need to be present to that experience versus the way we spend our entire lives, which is distracting ourselves from that experience. And it's getting easier and easier to distract ourselves because there's more and more and more, ways to be distracted. We didn't use. I always grew up. We didn't. If I had a, if they say go to your room, that meant go to your room. That meant like there's nothing to do in that room. Basically, now I got my phone. I've got my computer. I've got the TV set. There's so many distractions that I can. And if I don't have those things, I could still pretend I've got them or something. I could still like daydream about being on the computer. So our minds are more easily distracted. We're busier in our heads, but what we're not that we perhaps used to be, or maybe we never were, but what we could be, is quiet inside and present to the feelings that are swirling around us. So you get to find out, boy, that's how anxious I really am. That's how depressed I really am. And when you come face to face with it, when it gets that obvious and that evident that you're suffering, then that's the first step in the journey. right? And it's not like a snap of the fingers and all of a sudden you're all better, but
Right.
it's the start of freedom. You can't get free until you know you're in, you know, like Gurdjieff said, the first step for escaping from prison is realizing you're in prison.
Right.
Right?
That's good because there is something to that step to where you realize you may not be where you want to be, you know, but you're not where you want to be. So you have to realize that, and if you
Yeah.
stay where you are, you're
Yep.
still not going to be where you want to be. So what
Delusion is a powerful thing, right? Like they say, denial
yes.
isn't just a river in Egypt.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, walk us through, the process of different things that you offer for people,
Yeah, sure.
right now, because there are people listening that they, are at this spot or this crossroads where they want to move forward and they want to get with somebody who they trust and who could lead them on that journey. So, tell them, what kind of things they look for and what kind of things you offer that can help them.
Absolutely. Well, sure. So, the first thing to recognize or to maybe evaluate for yourself before you decide if I'm the kind of person you would want to work with is where are you on that continuum from I'm trapped, I'm in pain, or I'm anxious, or I'm a little bit stuck with what I want to do next, or I'm up to something big in life, but something's stopping me. Where on that continuum are you? Most people nowadays are not out here thinking about I want to, blow the seams off my business and get rich and make it happen. Now there are people like that, and I enjoy working with those people.
Mhm.
But what you find a lot nowadays are people who say, I'm so worried, I'm so stressed, I'm so anxious that I don't even know what I want. They just know I don't want to feel like this anymore. So it's like they're in here. They may not be here, but they're here. And when people say to me, everybody tells me that I should, that I need to have a passion and a purpose in order you know, to get successful, but I don't even have a passion or a purpose. What do I do about that? Right. And they're like, so they sit home and they rack their brains and they get upset with themselves. They don't have a passion or a purpose. And I say, well, that just means that this is where you are right now. The work that you need to do is about getting in touch with your deeper self. And that's where you'll discover your passion and purpose. And if you haven't yet discovered that, don't worry about the fact that you're not getting successful at something else, because it makes more sense for you to work on this stuff, right? If like you skipped kindergarten and everything that you're trying to learn in life requires that 5 plus 5, go back to kindergarten and learn 5 plus 5 and then go back to graduate school. So
Of
it's
course.
remedial. We need to start where we are. So if you're working with me, the first step is to start where you are. The first step is to evaluate where you are. Are you in pain? I'm doing a lot of work with Dr. Tim Warren right now. We have a group together we call the Ouch Doctors. And
Okay.
if you go to theouchdoctors.com, you'll see what we do is we are pain coaches.
Mhm.
And as pain coaches, what our job is that if you've got chronic pain, let's say you have fibromyalgia
Mhm.
or arthritis pain, or you're in chemotherapy for cancer and you're in pain because of that, regardless of the cause of your pain, uh, there's there are methods of using your mind, using your brain to shut off the pain signals. And some people are like, well, I don't want to shut off the pain signal because then how will I know if I've got a problem? You'll know you have a problem. You don't need to be in pain all the time to know you have a problem.
Oh, sure.
Right.
I like
So
that.
we show you, in fact, you're better off not in pain, because if you've got chronic, long lasting pain, you're blocking your ability to be aware of new pain, new symptoms when they arise, because it's being drowned out by the constant feeling of discomfort you have. So it's very important that we get to a center in regard to just being relatively pain free. So if that's you, if you're suffering from any of those diseases, particularly the ones for which there are no obvious cures, or the ones where you're just being told it's all in your head, right? All that stuff, where the doctors are scratching their heads. I can't figure out what this is. And again, things like fibromyalgia are very common experiences like that. Gastritis, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, all those kinds of things are very amenable to mindset changes, and we could help people break through that. And we've got a new program that we just put together that I'm really excited about. I'll tell you about it in a few minutes, But it's basically, it's a very inexpensive way to jump into that inquiry, to be able to learn how to use your head to get out of pain.
I like that.
Now, the next level, as I said, is the level of anxiety. Now, that's another area, and I've got a website called theanxietydoc.net. And
Okay.
as the anxiety doc, the kinds of people I work with are twofold. One are the people who are a mess. They are just so anxious and so uncomfortable that their lives have shrunken down to nothing. They don't go out, they don't travel, they're afraid of being in social situations. Sometimes they're agoraphobic, they don't want to go out the door. It can be a horrible feeling and a horrible way of living your life. And for those people, we've got to show them how to comfort themselves and how to gain a little courage and break through the mental barriers to anxiety. The other kinds of anxious people are the people who are out there like me. I'm a good example of this, like somebody who's out there in the world, they're doing work, they're trying to make a difference, but they still have anxiety that they've got to try to like parry through to get to the other side so they're even more effective. So the movers and the shakers, there's not a comedian you've ever seen who's not an anxious mess, right?
Okay.
They all have anxiety. They just learn how to channel it, right? So that's
Wow.
the other kind of people I work with, are people who want to learn how to take the anxiety and use it as fuel to be creative. So that's a different kind of coaching than just the pain coaching. So there's pain coaching and there's anxiety coaching. And then the third kind of coaching is let's help you figure out how to get quiet enough inside to discover your purpose, discover your passion, and then start setting out a path to move in that direction in a reliable way. So when you're coaching people, I'm sure it's the same thing. It's like, where are you stuck? Where are you going? And that's that kind of work. So depending on where someone is, I try to meet people where they are. And I've got very specific tools and strategies that derive both from mindfulness, which is the meditative stuff, and also from hypnosis. Because you could hypnotize away pain, you could hypnotize away anxiety, you could even hypnotize away shyness and fear, social anxiety, performance anxiety, things like that. So there's a lot we can do. And it's not just hypnosis, because hypnosis is more passive, meaning it's like, like taking a pill. Like, let's say you've got, an achy shoulder, you're taking a pill, that's passive, but you also have to move it, that's active. You've got to be involved yourself. And it's true of this work. So the hypnosis is the passive therapy and the mindfulness is the active therapy. That's your homework.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that whole thing about, a lot of people fall short with that. They see where they want to go, what they want delivered through this coach, but then they get stuck in the work, the actual homework that takes place.
Yeah.
So can you talk to somebody about a realistic time frame for being able to move forward with this transformation? Because a lot of people think it's like a microwave fast food drive-through, right? You've
Not by tomorrow.
diagnosed it. Yeah, you can pay the money and boom, you're fixed tomorrow. So a realistic time frame that people could be expecting.
Most everything that I've ever done in my life to get from the point of confusion to mastery, right? You start with confusion. I think I want to do something. I have no idea how. I think I want to do it. To get to the point where I'm like, I could think of myself as something of an expert at that, it's a year. It's usually a year. And it's a lot of work in that year, right? Because you've got a lot of repetition, a lot of reps that you have to do, like you would with exercise. And there's that whole thing about the seasons. You've got to go through all the seasons and have all the ups and the downs. And you have to recognize that any real journey, any real journey that you take, whether it's a journey from pain to pain free, or from anxiety to anxiety free, or from poor to poor free, whatever that journey is, you're going to go through some predictable steps, and you have to know these going in. You have to know that you're going to have an initial burst of enthusiasm and optimism. Almost everybody gets into coaching. They have a week of glory. They're like, oh, this is awesome. Everything's going great. And then like a few weeks into that, maybe they go into a hole. They're like, oh my God, nothing ever works for me. And they start feeling horrible. And if you know it in advance, it's like forewarned is forearmed. What are you going to do when you hit that wall? Because you're going to hit it, and that's good. You should hit that wall. If you don't hit that wall, you're not actually progressing. because that wall is the wall that, that you're trying to get through to the other side of.
Exactly.
And it's going to do
Mhm.
everything it can to keep you in the box. It's like the box. Imagine you've been living in a box and that box is alive. And that box doesn't want to let you out.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
the box doesn't have as much power as you think it does. So the way the box keeps you inside is not by overpowering you or being stronger than you. It overpowers you by scaring the crap out of you, right?
Right.
You get near the walls of the box and it's like, your life is going to be terrible if you try to get through this wall. And it's basically
Mhm.
scaring you into staying in the box. And so you're
Right.
going to be petrified. But then if you just stay petrified just a little bit longer, you realize you ain't got nothing. You ain't
Right.
got nothing. I'm just going to walk right through you. And now you're in a sense of freedom. And that's exactly how it's been for people I work with, whether it's, they've been in pain. I worked with a woman the other day. She had almost 9 years of fibromyalgia pain,
Wow.
walked out pain free.
Awesome.
Right now,
Mhm.
she did great. And then she, this is, the kind of thing where she'll have a little bit of pain again, or she'll have a little bit of, she'll face certain emotional things that she didn't face because of that.
Mhm.
And then she'll have to shake it off and move on to the next step. But by and large, that's how real healing happens. You got to get through those walls.
Yeah. Now, what do you need? Oh, I don't have that. I'll be right in. Because I'm recording and you're coming in here interrupting. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So the
And this
last
is, and this is
question,
why we don't do it live.
my last question is, talking to people about the investment in themselves,
Yeah.
because people don't understand the mindset of, what self-development, what they're really investing in, because, they balk at the prices and, what the benefits are. They're just kind of unsure about. So talk to them about that.
Well, guys, it's you, right? We're talking about the most important thing in your life, which is you, your feelings about yourself, your capacity to excel, your ability to break through the things that have held you back this far. You probably went to college and probably spent a small fortune to do it, so that you could have a job. And you might have a job and you might be miserable in that job because, you weren't really coming from a place of understanding yourself. So you've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars in what you do. How much have you invested in who you are, in understanding who you are, so that maybe the next move you make is better informed and gets you where you want to go further? Dan Clark said, we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with remarkable people. Because it's only in doing that, it's only in partnering with somebody, with a mentor, with a coach, that you get to learn things that you don't know. We're very, habituated to our own thinking. We think we've got all the answers, but we don't. And as long as you keep on living your life in that same bubble, your life isn't really going to change appreciably. But having somebody else who can help you, discover your insight, discover new awarenesses, and then hold you accountable to create new changes in your life is invaluable. It's an investment. It's not an expense. So you spend that money, you invest the money, and maybe it's going to be, I don't know, typical coaching fees, a few $1,000s and over a few months or whatever it is for you. It's peanuts. It's really nothing compared to, to what you're going to get on the end of it. And when you start thinking about what it's going to cost, what's the opportunity cost of not doing it? How
Right.
much less money you're going to make next year because you never got off your butt and changed your life, changed your thinking, stopped, living behind these habitual walls you've been living behind, and didn't even realize all the different opportunities that were out there. Besides which, most coaches I know other coaches. Most coaches I know have spoken on stages. They've written books. They know something you don't know. They know people you don't know. You start doing work in those areas, and now you're plugged into a community of people, not just your coach, but you're plugged into a community of people who are into personal development. And now you've got an idea because finally you've got, you're starting to free up your creativity. You've got freed up your passion, your purpose. You're like, I know what I want to do. I want to build a such and such. Well, now you to go to your coach says, I know somebody just, who you need to talk to. And you talk to that person and they like remove 5 more years from your learning curve. So this is what I've seen happen. I mean, I'm now at a level of what I do that the people I hang out with are, the best-selling authors, the thought leaders and whatnot. So if I've got something I want to do, I had an idea for an invention the other day, and I called up Alex Stern, the founder of Constant Contact, who's, if you know Constant Contact, he's a friend of mine. He's a billionaire, right? So
Awesome.
this is what starts to happen when you decide to stop thinking, it's my money, I'm hanging on to my money, I'm just going to do it my way. It's just such a small way to live compared to what's possible. So that's the way I would respond to that.
That's good. And then, the whole thing about creating the environment, there's something to that piece. We can get the latest book, we can listen to the most popular podcast, but also doing the work that aligns with the things that we're talking about. So, how strategic, or let's just talk about your routine. What do you do in your routine that allows you to be flexible and see those opportunities with those billionaires and people to where you begin to gravitate toward them, or they, also gravitate towards you? It's like magnetism, I think.
I practice humility because I am not by nature that humble, but I practice humility because, I always go back to my old quote. I say, don't believe everything you think. So if I'm thinking it, it's probably not true, but even though it feels very true because I'm the one who's thinking it. So, I think I know better than everybody else, but I also know that that's not worth believing, right? I can't believe that I'm really smarter than everybody around me. So even though it feels very true, it's not. And so I've got to operate not based on what feels true, but what is true. And what is true is that there are a lot of other smart people. And also, none of us is better than all of us. None of us is smarter than all of us. And you can't be your best self by yourself. So you've got to surround yourself with more people. So it's a constant act of monitoring myself and noticing, am I willing to step down? Am I willing to open up? Am I willing to ask for help? And am I willing to keep my eyes open? And it takes courage because, there are people who don't want to admit that they're wrong ever. And they're living their lives defensive. They're going to die their lives defensive, and they're going to probably alienate others and miss opportunities beyond belief. Whereas for me, it's like, I say yes all the time. That's if you ever studied improv, right? Improvisational comedy, improvisational theater, the very first exercise you do is yes. Yes, and. It's called yes, and. So the whole idea is you practice, no matter, you'll have like a bunch of people in a room, and one of them will say, let's go to the moon. And you're not allowed to say, that's ridiculous. You can't, we don't have a rocket. You say, yes, and let's build a rocket to get there. And then somebody else says, they're thinking, well, we're going to build a rocket. They say, yes, and let's call somebody who knows how to build a rocket. So you're building with yes, and. So just keep saying yes, and as often as you can. So I say yes. People invite me onto their podcasts, onto their radio shows. I don't do that thing that some people at my level of speaking do. It's like, how big is their list and how many? I don't care. I mean, if one person gets something from this, that makes me happy. If you're one of the people who gets something from this, send me an email. Tell me. It makes me happy. But I don't need to be, I've spoken to groups of 8,000 people. I've gotten standing ovations. I love that feeling. But I also love the feeling of knowing that I've made a difference to one person.
So true. So true. That is awesome. Well, I mean, this has just been very enlightening. And I think that this is a very appropriate topic, especially right now, because there's so many people that, as we mentioned offline, that there are many people who are going to be going through some major transformations, in terms of, what their family life looks like, their industries, and that really takes a toll on a lot of people's mental wellness. So,
can I share one more thing about that, and then I could tell you more.
Absolutely.
This part, it's kind of part of the yes and concept, and it's part of the concept that I use when I teach pain control. And the first step in the process, we only have time for the first step, but the first step is called reframe.
Okay.
So reframing is basically putting a new perspective on something. You could always reframe. There's never a time you can't reframe. If you're saying, yeah, but is not yes and, right? So if the worst were to happen, if like a loved one passed away, that's about as bad as it could get, except for you dying. If you die, but you're not around to be upset about it anymore.
Mhm.
But regardless of how grave the situation is, certainly you'll grieve, certainly you'll feel all that sadness and everything. You still, even in that difficult and painful a situation, you can reframe, meaning give it a new meaning, right? This is what we do all the time with, well, they lived a wonderful life, or they, at least they were here. Like giving it a new meaning. If you lost your job and now you don't know what you're going to do next, that is the situation whether you are miserable or happy. There are people who are in that exact same situation who are coming from a place of happiness because they've reframed it. They've said, awesome, this is an opportunity for me to reinvent myself, versus, oh my God, now, my life is over.
Mhm.
That's a decision. It's a choice that you get to make about how you're perceiving this experience. And the people who do the best and recover the quickest are the people who reframe the most quickly, who come up with the most um, generous explanation for why they are where they are and what the value of it is. What am I going to get out of being where I am right this second, forgetting about how I got here, forgetting about comparing it to what it was. Right now, this is where I am. I'm going to reframe it. This is an opportunity for to learn something new, to go back to school, to read a book, to maybe I just needed a break. Maybe I was working too hard and this is a good opportunity for to not work so hard. Okay, I can't afford as much food as I used to. Okay, that's great. Now I'm going to just go on a diet. Whatever it is, there's some way of reframing it
Mhm.
that puts you in a position to be more resourceful about solving the problem.
So true. That's good. I did an interview yesterday, and the young lady was into the health and wellness. And so she's having a conference, and she said, yeah, we're going to have somebody talk about fat loss. And I just thought, what? It just really struck a chord with me. And she was like, look, it is what it is. We've talked about weight loss, and, that's just the nice, polite way to put it, but the answer is, do you feel like you're fat? And if you are, what are you going to do to change it? So I think sometimes having those really true situations where it's in your face and
Yeah,
you're able to decide, what, I really want something different, and you're not distracted by feeling good in the process. It's like you really putting that salt in that wound to make a change. So I
yeah,
thought that was,
yeah.
and that's a great reframe. I mean, that was overcoming this whole politically correct way of talking about weight loss. And if it was so nice and fit in a box, more people would be doing it, right?
That's
um
awesome. Yeah, totally. That's a
mhm,
good example. Yeah, we do that
mhm.
all the time. And then somebody finally comes along and just tells it like it is. It just cut to the
Right.
chase. Yeah, yeah. That's
But you
cool.
get results because people are like, you're either going to be committed or not. So stop pretending, stop, coming up with these excuses.
Right
You're just
on.
going to make that decision. So I thought that was good.
Don't waste your time being a victim. Just use it as an opportunity to
Exactly.
make a change. So I do have something. This is kind of like it's premature because we haven't, the launch is next week, but this has been
Okay.
recorded. So by the time this goes live, maybe this will be a reality. But let me share this idea, okay?
Okay.
So in regard to this Ouch Doctors thing, we've been doing a show called New Thinking About Old Pain. And
Okay.
Dr. Tim and I, we are doing it on YouTube and on Facebook Live.
Okay.
And we run this show and we talk about all the different elements of how you can take charge of your experience of pain. And most of it's mindset, and there's some dietary things that are, play into it, and lifestyle changes, but it's a very powerful set of skills. And we decided to create a product. So we've got a thing that we're putting up, and it's going to go up on, I think, a week from today.
Okay.
Okay. And it's called Relief Rocket. And what it
Oh,
is,
okay.
it's an online course. It's only like $37.
Mhm.
And it's very, I mean, I'm so excited about this because for 37 bucks, you get this course, and it's all digitally, downloaded. It's all online.
Mhm.
And there are 5 modules to the course. And one module is this thing called the Rapid Relief Formula. which is the psychological thing about how to make pain stop. Really
Okay.
valuable, right? The
Mm-hmm.
second part is what we call the no cry list, which is the foods you should be eating that help remove inflammation from your body.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool, because inflammation causes pain. So we can make your
Right.
pain go away very quickly that way too. The third part is a guided meditation where I walk you through a process, and you can use it every night. It's a very soothing thing to help empower yourself and also soothe yourself. The fourth part we have is called Relief Rocket Roulette. And we have like 25 different ideas of things you could do, like quick little things when you're in pain, like just quick ideas. And we put them on a roulette wheel. And you click a button, it goes, and it lands somewhere. And whatever it lands on, you do it. So it's
Oh,
a really fun little game we put in the middle of the program. And then the last part is I teach how to do self-hypnosis. And I give you a script with fill in the blanks about things about you personally, and when you fill it in, then you record yourself saying the whole thing, and then I give you music to put behind it, and you make yourself your own little self hypnosis recording that you could listen to every night to help yourself get healthier and happier.
that's awesome.
So all that, and it's and it's going to be available on the site's up right now, but the what do you call it? The shopping cart doesn't work yet. It'll work hopefully in a couple of days. It's called The
Okay.
Relief Rocket,
Okay.
thereliefrocket.com.
Okay. The relief
So
rocket.
we're super excited about that, and we're going to be, doing a launch and spreading the word and letting everybody know about it, because we want to get people on the bandwagon to begin, even if they're not ready to jump in, like you and I know how important full-on coaching might be, but to at least give people some of the skills so they can empower themselves to take some of the actions that they need to take to get quick results for something like pain.
I love that. And I think it's right now it takes a village. There is
Yeah,
probably not enough people who can help in
yeah,
this realm of where we're at right now. So I think that is phenomenal. And it's I have learned just through my journey with coaching that it's a process. There's
yeah.
so much education to it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in addition to the actual coaching,
Right.
a lot of people think they understand what a coach does. And, the best scenario I usually give is that, you can look at LeBron James and I could be his coach, but I'm not going to be out there shooting any of the baskets that he's
Right.
responsible for,
Right.
right? The coach is not going to be on the court. And I don't know what the kind of misunderstanding is, but a lot of people don't understand the actual work that goes into their own self development. So
Yeah.
I think this is really good what you're
And
offering.
the other important point about what you just said is LeBron James has a coach,
Right,
right? So there are
right,
people like, I don't need a coach. Well, LeBron James has one,
right,
Michael Jordan had one. Like everybody has a coach. Like
right.
if you're up to anything in life, if you don't have a coach, then you're shooting yourself in the foot.
So
So
true.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and and even in those instances, they are allowing the coach to see things so that they can be focused on what they do.
right.
If you find a coach, they help you really shine in your zone of genius because they tell you the things that you need to avoid or let you know how you can shine that much greater. So I mean, it's
Because they can't, if you can't see yourself the way somebody else can see you, that's the issue. Is
right. You're the
you don't have the
picture
eyes
in
to
the
see yourself.
frame.
Exactly.
Yeah, or you're
Yeah,
inside the cereal box, right?
good one. I like it. That's
Oh,
funny.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, okay, so what's the best way for everybody to get a hold of you?
Go to my website, stevetaubman.com. So Steve,
Okay.
Taubman.com.
Mhm.
And that's certainly the best way. If you want to get any of my stuff, like if you go to bestofsteve.com,
Yeah,
bestofsteve.com, you can get a free digital download of the first chapter of my newest book, which is called Bulletproof.
yeah.
And that's a good way to kind of enter the world. And then I also send out a newsletter once a week, kind of just weekly wisdom tips. So usually
Mm.
they're pretty interesting. And it's not, I don't want to call it a newsletter. It's not news. It's like here's something to think about. So that's probably your best bet. So either go to stevetaubman.com or go to bestofsteve.com and get whatever you want, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then what final words do you want to share with everybody?
The one that was going through my mind today, and I find myself repeating this a lot, is something that I wrote about, and it's fix the mood before you fix the mess. And what that means is be aware of your mood, your energy, your state of mind. When you're dealing with something that's frustrating or irritating, usually what we do is we just dig in deep and try to fix the problem. And then we end up making enemies. Like I've got one going right now that I know that if I don't like sit down and meditate and get calm and comfortable, and I pick up the phone and call this person back, it's not going to go well, right? But
Right.
part of me wants to do that. Part of me wants to just, I've got to fix this. I've got to deal with this. Discipline yourself to monitor your own mental state, fix the mood, fix the energy, the state of mind. Let the problem itself wait until you're in a position to deal best with it. And the other way to put that is put your best foot forward.
I love that. And that is so appropriate for me right now
Mm.
with 8 kids e-learning. Fix the mood before I fix the mess, okay?
Yeah, that's right. And there's a lot of mess. So you got a lot of mood to work on there.
So good. Well, this has just been wonderful. It's always a pleasure to talk with
Really,
you,
I love talking with
and looking forward to our next collaboration. I'm excited to see what what goes for you for 2021. I'm already looking forward.
you.
But we
Yes,
have to do the work now so that we can reap some of those benefits in
it
2021,
feeds,
right?
baby. Yep,
Yep.
absolutely. Well,
So
thanks for having me on. This has been a lot of fun.
awesome. Well, you keep shining and doing everything that you do and launching those rockets, okay? Because
Yeah.
that's something that's well needed right now. And we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you very much. You're
All right.
awesome.